Well, good evening and welcome to The Journey Home. I'm Marcus Grodi, your host for this program. This is one of our special editions from Ottawa, Ontario. And our interview is with Terry Hatty. Terry, it's great to have you on The Journey Home.
Thank you, Marcus. It's a privilege to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure because even as we were talking a little bit before the show, we share a little bit because of our love for music. But you're still doing it, so we're going to hear a lot about that.
I am.
And you ever seen The Journey Home?
About 1,000,000 times. That's why this experience here is like an iconic, bizarre thing to actually be sitting here looking at you.
Well,
inches away from me, because I've watched the show 1,000,000 times and listened to the podcast even more.
All right. Yeah. Well, the only reason I ask that is you know what you're getting in for. And you know what I usually do is I get out of the way as soon as I can to ask you to back up way back to give the audience a glimpse of where you came from spiritually.
Yeah. Well, I'm from St. John, New Brunswick, here in Canada. I was brought up in a Catholic home. Good folks, solid, hard-working people. And we were taken to church, and then after a while we were sent. And then after a while, a little further, I was in university and I completely slipped away from the church. So I got involved in the world of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, like big time. And
this was at the peak of it, right? In the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, I'm talking about, I went away to university in 66. Get into my first band. There was the toll of death right there for academia. I get into my first band listening to blues, as we were just speaking.
Yep.
So I spent my first year, intellectually noodling with the sophomores and juniors and listening to the Paul Butterfield Blues Band. So then I got into my first band. That was the end of studies pretty well. Went back home to St. John. The university suspended me because I only passed 5 subjects out of 6 or something. Started to get into bands. Was invited into a band called the Banana Splat. I said, no, I can't do that. And then I joined a band called Ruptured Duck Repair Service, which shows you that I've got a lot more sense about nomenclature than one might imagine.
What was it again? The
Ruptured Duck Repair Service, which is actually a thing from the war, from I think the Air Force. That's what they were called. Ruptured ducks limping back from sorties. So yeah, back home in St. John, one band after another.
Singer, guitar player.
Primarily a singer then. Yeah, I just picked the guitar up gradually over. I picked the guitar up because I had to write. I had to have something to write with. And, as the years went by, I co-wrote with a lot of people, but that wasn't really happening then. There weren't enough guys popping up with chord sequences and things, and I had to start writing. So that's why I learned guitar. So, the love of playing and stuff took me. I went to Woodstock at the end of 1969, the actual Woodstock. That was quite an experience.
I was going to say.
It really was, the 60s.
There's those of us that heard about it from afar and wondered whether what we heard was really happening, but...
Yeah, and we had no idea that was going to happen. I just saw an ad in Rolling Stone and flew down to New York City, and we got a bus upstate, and boom, this thing happened. And I thought there were a lot of aspects of it, as the 60s as well, that were quite beautiful. The love aspect, but as I've had to reflect upon and realize and admit many times since, we didn't really know what love was, nor did we know where that love was going to change the world, but we didn't know what it was, and we didn't know where it was going to come from. Because it's just not human love that can change the world. So that took a long time to figure that out.
Yeah, I think wasn't there a song with something about love the one you're with? I mean, that was part of that.
That's a Steve Stills song.
Yeah, the end of the 60s. That was
early
a different
70s,
understanding of 60s.
The hangover of the 60s or whatever. 70, 71. Yeah, that was dreadful, wasn't it? I mean, I wasn't even a Christian then, and I hated that song. What that song put out there. With all respect to Steve Stills, or at least he was a great singer and guitar player. Anyway, I digress. So Woodstock, and then back to Canada, lots more bands. Moved to Halifax, moved to PEI, moved to Halifax, moved to Montreal, New Jersey. I'm in the middle now of messing up my first marriage, from which issued a daughter. That's wonderful. I shouldn't mention it. It should be 40 soon, but
any faith in there at all? Or
no. But you know what? And I just love to make this point. I was searching all the time. You know, that's why the testimony keeps going back further and further. I was searching all the time for the real, what was real in this world. What I wanted something real, and I thought it was, you know, the love thing of the '60s, and that proved to be not true. And then I thought married life, but that's not enough. As I say, messed up that first marriage. And the point I wanted to make was that I searched through all the music of those days. I was looking for something. And I just think there's a whole lot of people that do that. And it's almost like I'm glad it happened that way, that someone just doesn't come and go, boom. I searched through albums by Yes and listening to Stevie Wonder and what did he mean by that, and the Beatles, and because there are hidden meanings. You can read a lot of stuff in there that's ridiculous too.
Especially if you're playing backwards. Remember those? Right? I mean, remember when I sang in a group once and we sang the song Rain, and we had to learn how to say it backwards because it was, I mean, right. The meaning's in there somewhere. You know,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you know, the problem was too, Marcus, I found that finding that turntable that will play backwards was always a difficulty. I tried everywhere, but yeah, it just didn't come together. So anyway, I just love that aspect of, maybe it's just a romantic notion on my part, but the idea of searching through, not that anyone maybe arbitrarily choose to do it this way, but the idea of searching, personally searching, putting everything through like a fine-tooth comb through every lyric, like what does that mean? Because, you know, I heard God at the heart of it. I just believed that a real God was behind all this stuff. So when you listen to this music by Yes, and it's really dismissed by Rolling Stone and people that love rock and roll as pretentious crap, I listened to it and found that it had a spiritual reach to it. It was reaching for something. And so I loved it because of that. And by listening to those kinds of things, it furthered my search. And I credit and I'm grateful to all those bands and artists for trying to put their heart and soul into the music, because that's what I'm looking for when I hear something. I want to hear the heart and soul of the person in the music. That's what I'm still like. But and I believe it was there, and certain songs took me another foot, another rod, another league, until I eventually found the Lord. But there was a lot of searching. By the mid 70s, I'm in Toronto, and I'm in a very successful band. And then the band breaks up, and you may know this about bands. When the band breaks up, it's not like, oh, gee, I need a job now. It's way worse than that. It's who am I, basically, when the band broke up. So the big band that I was in Toronto that was successful broke up, and I was almost on the street. So, but you know, it was identity crisis time. What's going on? Who am I? So I just woke up one morning in North Toronto and was having my cup of lousy coffee, instant coffee with a Capricorn mug. All kinds of nonsense you get into. But I just realized that music was not going to save me. Music was not going to be there to hold my hand and walk me through everything and save me. So I got up off my chair and I walked into the bedroom and I get down on my knees at the foot of the bed. And I had a big poster of Jesus, John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life, which I got from the Scientologists. See, I was into Return to Forever, the band, and I got a catalog from them. And in the catalog was this poster of Jesus. This was a big mistake on their part. That's gone on to cause a lot of trouble and lose them a lot of converts. Anyway, I looked at the poster and I just prayed honestly to whoever was there, please, if you're there, just help me. I don't know my own name. I didn't even know what I was saying, you know, because there is something about your own name. I don't know what a door is. I just need somebody. Something. And I got up went back into my life. And at that particular time, a drummer in Toronto had been trying to put a band together that would include me and a guitar player named Fred Keeler. Well, Fred Keeler played with David Clayton Thomas's early bands. You remember him from Blood, Sweat and Tears?
Oh yeah, right.
He was the most wonderful guitar player. I've got him up there with Jimi Hendrix and Jeff Beck. He's an unbelievable player. He plays completely from the heart. So he was vacillating about whether or not he wanted to join this group. Fred Keeler was, and interestingly, after I went in and asked God to come into my life, Fred changed his mind and joined the group. So now we're up at Fred's house in the afternoons rehearsing and putting this band together, and Fred's serving everyone tea and coffee and making toast, and I'm going, what's that about? I mean, he's the guy with the talent. What's he doing? You know, not that I was critical, but it really intrigued me that he was so humble, that he would act like this. And we'd drive to gigs and he'd say, you know, you ought to come down to my church, blah, 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 you know, the minister, Pastor White, he's really great. And I'd go, yeah, you know, with that sort of vacant, yeah thing that didn't really mean anything. And I never did go. But that band worked through the fall, and then at Christmas time, I went back to St. John for Christmas. Came home drunk one night, and I turned the television on, and I'm flipping around the channels. There was no remote then. I'm flipping around. This is 1975 Christmas, I think. And I'm flipping around, and here's this guy, Jim Baker. Oh, and I turned him right off because I didn't want to listen to that. And I kept flipping around, and there he is again. So I look at him a little bit longer. Next time I listen a little bit. Anyway, within 10 minutes, I'm on my knees in front of the television set, asking Jesus Christ to come into my life and be my personal Savior. Then I went right back into my heinous life. Easter comes, 76. I've got it all planned. Did you ever hear of the Urantia book?
I can't place it though.
It's like this big tome. It's like an imitation Bible, with paper printed on paper, just like a Bible would be on, right? And it's a complete alternate explanation of everything in the universe and the world. So Good Friday comes along, and I'm going to stay home. These guys are all leaving. I was living with two of the other musicians, as usual. These guys are going, I'm going to stay home, watch those Easter movies, and read the Urantia book. So they all left. I looked for it. It wasn't there. I was pretty disappointed, but I just watched the movies, and the movies, you know, they had an impact on me like never before. So I found myself that weekend basically in a bath of tears most of the time, walking around Toronto looking up at the sky going, what's happening to me? And writing songs. And then I didn't go to church that Easter. The year went on. I moved back to Halifax. I was asked if I was interested in moving back to Halifax. And it was really crazy because I kept saying no. He kept flying me down, the director of the band, the producer, and to jam with the band and see if I'd like it better this time. I kept saying, I don't think so. So the way that conversation went through the fall was like, would you like to know? No. Yeah. Still don't know to this day why I said yeah. But I moved back to Halifax where I'd lived before and played. We were going to form this band, which eventually came to be called RAM, which people thought meant religion and music, because we did some of the Christian songs that I wrote, and my friend Patrick Rowley and my friend George Antoni. I had two Catholic guys that were in the band. Two of my best friends, both Catholic, in this band, so I had someone to talk to about my continuing search. The year 1977 came around. I started the year off by joining the Y and getting in the best shape of my life, all kind of cleaned up. I got away from... I stopped drinking and doing a bunch of things. I didn't even notice it. So it was Good Friday. I go to the library and get two Requiem Masses out, Mozart and Gabriel Fauré, actually. And I'm home on Easter Sunday ironing my pants because I'm going to church that night at St. Peter's up the street. It's a round church, so the devil can't get you in the corners, what they always say when they talk about St. Peter's. But so I go to Mass and haltingly trying to sing along with hymns I don't really know. And there's the statue of the resurrected Christ over on the far wall. And at a certain point in the Mass, I just find myself looking at that statue, saying, "You're so strong and I'm so weak." Started crying. Mass is over. Now suddenly it's really important for me to go home and phone my family, which you haven't heard me mention much. I just, there's no trouble there, just a complete lack of attention because I'm never in St. John. But now it's really important for me to talk to my mother, and so I did that. And I had it planned out. I was going to watch Jesus of Nazareth immediately after the Mass, but there was the phone call, and then there was the show, which had a huge impact on me, Jesus of Nazareth. And then in the succeeding days, Pat Riley, my friend who had been involved with Renewal a bit, told me about it. I started to go to Renewal. When I walked in that hall, it was like I came home after a long journey. This is just what it felt like. And as it happened, you can't really say as it happened with the Lord. It's not an accident. It was the night they prayed. We were praying with people for the release of the Holy Spirit. It was the Life in the Seminars night. So I always remember that night. The room was full of smoke. When I think of that night, just like in the Bible, when people, the anointing is so thick sometimes that the priests can't see each other. I think there's something in the Old Testament about that. Anyway, and then basically my life just completely changed. Did you ever go back and re-examine what you had learned doctrinally wise, or it was really just a falling in love with our Lord and coming home to the church that you had been baptized? So personal, yeah. I didn't, and my life after that day, I was watching PTL Club for 2 hours every day in the morning, which is the first place I saw Mother Angelica, by the way, 1977. I'd come home. I remember coming home on a Sunday night, and it was on at that Sunday night, and she was on. But the people were in hysterics, laughing. And she told the story about going to the bank to get the loan for the books and calling the bank manager a pagan because he wouldn't give her. She said, "Are you Catholic?" He said, "Yeah." And she called him a pagan, and he gave her the loan. Amazing woman. But, yeah.
In that process, you're talking about really a very fundamentalist, on fire, non-Catholic that really had awakened your heart back to Christ. Was there a struggle in there, whether you returned to your Catholic faith or end up outside where other folk were?
There probably was a struggle, but basically I was just carried along. Okay. So, I did go to the Pentecostal church, and I had Baptist friends. I would go around, but I wasn't really shopping. I wasn't shopping. I just, I got into the Renewal. So sure. The Renewal, you're just going to go right into the church. It's what the Renewal's for, isn't it? I mean, to renew the church by charisms and whatever. So, yeah, I just came right into the church, started singing at Mass. And
you mentioned that for you at a time, and I can relate to this in my early days with music, that music could almost become a god or become the thing that you hope is going to give meaning to life. It's going to be the thing where you're going to find it, and then on the one hand, it can be a help, but sometimes it can be a great detriment. Talk about that, because music is your life to this day, right?
It is.
What way did God use the music to bring you home? And was it also a barrier? But all?
Yeah, all those ways that I talked about, for sure. And music is still to me the most wonderful, one of the most wonderful things that God has ever placed in my life. But it's a creation. It's not the creator. And just this whole progress through listening to songs and talking to people was leading to a person. And no thing was going to be able to just substitute for that. And I think there's millions of people right now that think about music that way, still, that think that it's the end all. And I just don't believe it can be. It's still just a created entity, as wonderful as it is. And I've been up and down with music. When I first became a Christian, I thought, I'm a little too into music. I'm a little too worshipful about it. I need to kind of back off a little bit and be more, keep a bit of a distance and not allow it to completely overwhelm me. Because through those years, I could listen to music and I'm completely gone. I may as well not even be in the room. So it invaded on me so heavily. But there was a bit of a struggle, but not really.
Well, Augustine makes that comment. He who sings prays twice. And he's touching at, I think that the most powerful nature of music is it's not just our physical, it touches our soul too. So it can be temptingly a replacement for God. I mean, that's what you're saying. It has the power to move
Totally.
and to touch all the way down to the depths of our being. So it can be an imitation of God if we don't recognize, or it can be the way that we try to lift ourselves up, to let everybody see us,
If we haven't encountered God,
right.
How are we going to know anyway that God is so much more than this incredible thing that you've discovered, music? You just don't know. You think you've found it. I mean, everybody's looking. Everybody's searching. Nowadays, nobody talks about anything, though. I can't.
You mean in the music itself?
Yeah, most of the young people I know, the only thing they talk about is movies. Because it's safe. Because it's like nobody... I remember getting into a discussion with someone in the green room of Anne of Green Gables, and we were talking about music. Or excuse me, we were talking about religion. And it got just a little heated because folks can be really, really negative about the Catholic Church. So just a little bit heated, and someone came in the room and sat down and said, "But what are you guys talking about? Are you arguing about religion?" And it was so clear that what he meant was, what for? It's irrelevant. This was the attitude. This is a lot of people's attitude. We're past God. We're too hip for that now. We've outgrown God. That's what I get a lot on the street these days. And don't even bring up religion.
Well, and it seems that the music has changed, because I remember in my early days, you had the folk singers in the early 60s, you had people with a message in their music, even the Simon and Garfunkels and James Taylors and Carole Kings, that there was a message in there. Burt Bacharach, there was a message in that, but the messages today, even the style of music seems to have gone a long way from that. Maybe I'm out of touch, maybe you see it differently, but I'm...
Well, there was song structure back then. And the Beatles, they helped that along. They wrote songs. Nowadays, as soon as you say nowadays, you've dated yourself. Like a million people just turned off, young people. Nowadays, who says that? But what I mean is, it is really different. And there needn't be any kind of structure whereby there's an antecedent that it's just gone. And so in a way you can see why people think it's an entirely new world. The internet is here. We've now begun the new world, and everything else, anything before that doesn't count. History goes back 3 weeks, Who's the best singer you ever heard? Oh, well, it's this guy I saw last week, Never mind anybody that lived 5 years ago.
Next week it'll change, and of course now...
Absolutely.
But now everything has become so electronic in the music, where back in the early days it was acoustic and great skill.
Skill is a thing of the past. It's almost frowned upon. That's thought of as too smooth or too... It's too planned. Yeah, I think that would be called not keeping it real. So for what I've been able to discern, I'm being a little sarcastic here, keeping it real means not playing in time or in tune. None of that's necessary anymore. Just keep it real. In other words, I'm being sarcastic, I'm being a little silly, but in other words, the real emotions of a given singer or band, no matter how angry or hateful or whatever, it seems to me, and I'm saying this kind of as a positive, that's what people are really looking for. They're looking for what they think of as real. And a lot of the things that you and I valued are not valued at all anymore. I think about this all the time, because it's just an interesting phenomenon to watch, and then it has its profoundly disturbing aspects, for someone that loves music. The things that are anointed on the radio, like public radio as well, as being, yes, that was so-and-so, another brilliant, and I'm going, not brilliant. Person can't sing in tune. the guitar, they can't play hardly. There's a lot of that.
I remember
It's not all of it, though. There's a lot of talented people.
Well, of course, and we're talking generalities. I remember once going to a high school concert where at the end of the year, the different kids were singing and showing their skills as a part of the end of the thing. Well, there was a girl singing, trying to imitate one of the professionals out there who, the professional singer, the woman singer, never holds a note tight, just all over the place. That's her skill.
Yeah.
Here's the young singer trying to imitate that. And I wanted to scream, no, first do the basics.
Yeah.
Learn how to hold a tune, then you can break the rules.
Yeah.
And when I look back on the early days, people worked from the way up, they learned the rules, they understood music, then they started to experiment as opposed to beginning with it today and have lost that. Question I have for you, because you've sung all kinds of songs.
I like to sing a lot of different kinds of songs.
It seems to me when I've heard some great tunes, word-wise, that God can speak through people, whether they know it or not.
Well, totally. Absolutely. Particularly if you're searching. I just completely believe that God will use He'll go where you are. It's been said a million times, but it needs to be said a million more. He'll go where you are. If you're the kind of person that likes this, they're searching for God, and these are your propensities, He'll come through that. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, some great songs, some great tunes. You wonder, that guy's got to be a Catholic, or that guy's got to know Christ. And then you find out, no, he doesn't. But God used that person's heart as a channel of His message, and it's out there. That's why we do it, to be discerning. Not every music that comes down the pike is going to be a message of our Lord's love. But what about in your continued singing? You say all kinds of stuff. What about the struggle between when you're called to sing stuff that doesn't have a good message to it?
Thank God that hasn't happened to me a lot. It really hasn't. Because I might not have any kind of career at all by this point.
But you know what I mean? There's some that they want a message they want to convey through the song, and it isn't a good one.
Yeah. If I do get into something like that, I just try to find a way to spin it. I've actually changed lyrics or eliminated lyrics.
Sure.
Yeah, because anything really heinous, I just couldn't do it. I've refused to audition for shows sometimes because the part that I was going to play was going to be something I really don't want to have anything to do with. So, yeah, I've been fortunate. I've been blessed. If it does happen, I spin it somehow.
Well, Terry, thanks for sharing your journey with us, my friend, and your music, and you're still doing it, still singing away. I've lost the pipes. I'm glad someone's still doing it well.
My heart's still there.
All right. Well, Terry, with all that, talking about the different music you do and the different point of it, we're going to take some time, which we don't always do in the journey home, but to let you share a few tunes with us. To the audience, what are you going to play?
Just, some songs the Lord gave me that cover, one of them's kind of it's called He's Hip. It's kind of just frame things in a different way. Another one's called Jesus Is All Around Me, which, to be honest, I just wrote one night walking home in the dark and got a little edgy, and it came in my head. It became a song.
All right.
So those would be two.
All right. Well, we'll take a break, and when we come back, you won't be sitting there alone. You'll be sitting there with your guitar, right?
With the guitar.
All right. Okay, thank you, Terry. See you in a bit.
So you think nobody cares. Search in vain for a hand to guide you. In your heart and mind, the questions that you find have always seemed without an answer. Yeah, but he's hip and he knows what you're worried about. Oh yeah, yeah, he's there and he bears all your sorrow and doubt. He knows you've been alone in his Father's house. He'll make you a home. Yes, he's hip. It's a real love trip. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I don't have to see you cry to know the pain that you're going through. Anyone can tell you've had your share of hell. Somebody bought you a share in heaven. Yeah, and he's hip. He knows what you're worried about. Yeah, 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 yeah. He's there and he bears all your sorrow and doubt. Whoa, he knows you've been alone in his Father's house. He'll make you home. He's hip. It's a real love trip. Yeah, yeah. Real love trip. Yeah, yeah. Well, he knows your needs, knows your sorrows, knows your cares, even before you ask. He's hip. He knows, he knows, he knows he loves you. Oh, yeah, 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 I will say something about this song. Okay? This is a song called Thanksgiving Song, which I wrote way back in 1977 or something. And I wrote it from Psalm 65 right out of the Jerusalem Bible, and it said Thanksgiving Song at the top. But I didn't find out until 2 or 3 weeks later that it actually had been Thanksgiving Day when I wrote the song. So it's one of those nice things that happen. Praise is rightfully due to you, Lord God in Zion. Vows to you must be fulfilled, for you answer prayer. All flesh must come to you with all our weakness. Though our sins may weigh us down, you blot them out. Happy the man whom you choose and invite to live in your courts. You fill us with all the good things of your house, of your holy temple. Your strength holds the mountains up, such the power that wraps you. You speak, the ocean waves are still, you calm the raging sea. You visit the earth and water her, you load her with your riches. Lord, your rivers overflow, the land yields its crop. Your mighty miracles bring shouts of joy from sunrise to sunset. You fill us with all the good things of your house, of your holy temple. And this is how you bless your own. Dear God, we thank you. This is how you show your love. Father, be praised. You sharpen the earth with showers. Dear God, we thank you for blessing our first fruits. And dear God, we thank you for crowning the year with your bounty. And dear God, we thank you. Abundance flows wherever you pass. Dear God, we thank you. The desert fountains overflow. Dear God, we thank you. All the hillsides are wrapped in joy. Dear God, we thank you. Where valleys you adorn with flocks. Dear God, we thank you. For prairies clothed in wheat. Dear God, we thank you. With shouts of joy and with singing we come into your courts. You fill us with all the good things of your house, of your holy temple. Dear God, we thank you. Dear God, we thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lord. Jesus is all around me. He's all around me. Jesus is all around me. He's all around me. Jesus is all around me. He's all around me. Jesus is all around me. He's all around me. There isn't any place I am that he is not there. Nowhere I've been, he was not with me. Even sometimes when it's dark and I'm full of fear, I call his holy name and his peace surrounds me. 'Cause Jesus is all around me. He's all around me. Jesus is all around me. He's all around me. Oh, Jesus is all around me. He's all around me. Jesus is all around me. He's all around me. Well, now I may not be the Christian I'd like to be. My Jesus tells me that he wants me to be as patient with myself as he is with me. I know he'll change me from the way he found me. I'm so glad he found me. Yes, I am. Hallelujah! 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 Jesus is all around me. He's all around me. Jesus is all around me. He's all around me. Well, Jesus is all around me. He's all around me. Jesus is all around me. He's all around me. Well, if you're ever feeling down or you're in despair, no one can lift you up like Jesus. Just begin to praise his name, let it fill the air. Very soon you feel his arms around you, 'cause Jesus is all around you. He's all around you. Jesus is all around you. Well, now he's all around you. Jesus is all around you. He's all around you. Well, Jesus is all around you. He's all around you. All around you. All around you. Jesus is all around you. He's all around you. All around you now. This is called Be a Rock. In you, oh Lord, I take refuge. Let me never be put to shame. In your justice, rescue me, free me, pay heed to me, and save me. It is you, Lord, who are my hope, my trust, O Lord. As since my youth, on you I've leaned since I was born, oh, right from my mother's womb. You have been my help. My hope has always been in you. My hope has always been in you. Be a rock where I can take refuge, a mighty stronghold to save me. For you have been my rock, my mighty stronghold. Free me from the hand of the wicked, from the grip of the unjust, from the oppressor. My fate has filled many with awe. They can't believe what you have done. I want to sing about your goodness. I want to sing of your love. All of my life you were so close, though many times I turned away. In all my pain and my confusion, I turned to you and you came, took away my shame. My hope has always been in you. My hope will always be in you. Be a rock where I can take refuge, a mighty stronghold to save me. You have been my rock, my mighty stronghold. Free me from the hand of the wicked, from the grip of the unjust, from the oppressor. Thank you all.
No, thank you, Terry. You know, this was not just an add-on. That's what I want to make sure you hear. This was telling the story. I mean, it's one thing to tell how the Lord works in your life, but then a person whose music is their life, this is the way you tell the story, through what you've written and the way you communicate to us. So thank you so much for that.
Pleasure.
Oh, man, it was superb. I hope you've enjoyed this special episode of The Journey Home. It's not your usual journey home, but Terry's not your usual journey home convert to the church. He uses the gifts that God has given him, as St. Augustine says, to pray twice. Thanks, Terry. God bless you. See you again soon.